All right, depending on where your class left off yesterday, you can feel free to fast forward the video. I'm going to go over these last two examples because classes ended in different spots. So with this first one, and we're doing synthetic division here, not long division like we had learned. Although we could do long division with this problem, it's better to do synthetic. It's a little bit faster. So the first thing we're going to do with synthetic division is we need to figure out what goes in our bracket here, essentially. And that's always going to be the root of this thing right here. Now, I know x plus 3 is the factor, but the root, in other words, like where it crosses the x-intercept, is x equals -3. So we're going to put a -3 right here. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our coefficients of this equation here. Those are just the numbers outside of the variables, or in front of the variables. So at the moment, we've got a 2, a 10, and a -12. So our 2, our 10, and our -12. The problem is if you notice the exponents, they go 3, 2, and then they go down to no exponents. So we're missing a term here. We're missing the just single x. X cubed, x squared, x, and then no x's. So when we do list our coefficients, we're going to need to put a 0 in for that spot. We always have to put zeros for missing terms. So let's list 2, and then we'll list 10, and 0, and then -12. And now we start dividing. Usually I draw my bar, and I drop my first term. You always drop your first term on synthetic division. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take that 2 that we just dropped down right here, and we're going to multiply it to this -3. And you'll notice that's what I'm going to do most of the time, is just come back to that -3 and multiply. But at the moment, 2 times -3 is -6. I'm going to put that answer right. Let me get a pen here real quick. I'm going to put that answer right here of -6. All right, so there it is. We're going to add those two numbers together, and we're going to get 4. So we've got our next number. Now we're going to take that 4 and multiply it to that original -3 up in the bracket. And 4 times -3 is -12. I'll put that right there. And then we'll add those together to get -12 as a final answer for that column. Then last, we're going to take that -12. We're going to multiply to the -3 in the bracket. This is going to give us positive 36. Put that positive 36 right there. Add those together and get 24. And so there are our numbers, right? Now, to actually turn this into an equation, you can think of it a couple different ways, like I explained yesterday in class. You can start from the right or the left. Really, the best probably way to think about this is the original function that we were dividing was a cubic function. Let me kind of erase these little circles here so we can look at the exponents. So it was a cubic function, meaning it was to the 3rd degree, and that means then that the new equation we have here is going to be to the 2nd degree, so 1 degree less. So what we're going to say is this is going to be 2x squared, so instead of 2x to the 3rd, 1 less, then plus 4x, and we're just going to kind of drop our exponents here. So 2x exponents, 1 exponent, the -12 will have 0 x's on it. And then, of course, the 24, the last number, will always be your remainder, so 24. But we're going to divide this not by -3, because -3 wasn't exactly what we were dividing by. We were actually dividing by x plus 3 in this problem. That was like our main goal. So I'm going to make sure to list this as x plus 3 as our remaining thing, and then there's our answer. All right, so just heads up, check out missing terms, make sure you look for them. Synthetic division can go horribly wrong if you don't catch a missing term. So what about if the coefficient of x is not 1 in the thing we're dividing by, in the divisor? So I want to look at this one here where the thing we're dividing by is 2x minus 1, not just like x minus 1. And so when we go to synthetically divide this one, to find the root, the thing in our bracket, we're going to have to kind of go back to what we did in chapter 3 with quadratics. And if you guys think back to chapter 3, like let's imagine we had a quadratic and we factored that quadratic into like 3x plus 2 and 2x minus 1. And I'd say, okay, what are the x-intercepts now of this guy? And most of us would say, okay, well, on this one, we're going to subtract 2 and then divide by 3. That would be -2/3. And then on the second one, we're going to add 1 and divide the 2 off of there. And you guys would give me these two answers, and that's when we were factoring. Those are the roots, the things I have circled. Those are the roots. So when I look at a factor like 2x minus 1, I know the root's going to be 1/2. Add 1, divide by 2. So we're actually going to have a fraction in our bracket this time. So yeah, we can synthetically divide with fractions. In this one, we don't have any missing terms. It looks like I've got my 3rd power, my 2nd power, my 1st power. So I'm going to just list 4, -6, 4, and -1. Just the coefficients of that guy. Let's draw our bar, and we're going to drop that 4. Now, multiplying by 1/2 is the same thing as just dividing by 2. So essentially, I'm just going to kind of divide all these numbers by 2. So 4 times 1/2, or 4 divided by 2, is positive 2. I'll put that answer there and add those together, and sure enough, get another -4, which is kind of nice. I'm going to take that -4 and multiply it by 1/2 and get -2. And sure enough, add those together and get a positive 2, which is also divisible by 2. 2 times 1/2 is 1. Add those together and get a nice remainder of 0. So there it is. This answer should also be a quadratic. Again, the original function was to the third power up here, so the new function is to the second power. So 4x squared minus 4x plus 2, and then a remainder of 0. You don't have to write anything. And there we go. So that's synthetic division at this point, and hopefully those two examples sort of help kind of remind you of how to do it. Obviously, at this point, you should move on to the 4-3 number 2 homework that I have on the Wednesday spot on our agenda. I believe it's 20 through 27, and that's what you should work on in class with either a partner or yourself. Listen to music while you do it. So if you have any questions, I'll be back on Monday, and we can go over more then.